Phil,
Jan, how are you?
good morning to you, Phil.
Good morning to you. I'm just gonna get my.
Yeah, you are with the seaside behind you from Guadeloupe, or I don't know where you are, but
I'm just gonna turn this off. So, 'cause, there you go. That's better.
it was a bit
So,
windy behind you.
yeah, it was. Yeah, yeah. You know, what? I don't use Zoom very often anymore. Do you know what I mean? It's just not something that. Do you know what I mean? We obviously we got Teams here, so everything we do is on Teams.
Okay, so for me it will be Zoom. French Toy Rendezvous is on Zoom.
Yeah, exactly. So, how are things? You okay?
Yes, everything okay? So you ready to talk?
Yeah, yeah, of course, yeah, yeah. So, always ready.
Okay, so welcome to the French Toy Rendezvous number 25. I'm recording now. 2 years, doing this French Toy Rendezvous. Thanks for joining, Phil.
Pleasure.
Usually I don't know the people I'm interviewing, but I know you a little bit for a few years
Yes.
from the toy business, and but I don't know you personally, and probably not everybody, even if you are a known guy. And what is interesting in the French Toy Rendezvous, it's to know a bit more about the people, about their childhood and what they have been doing, what kind of toys they were playing, indoor, outdoor, where were you growing, what are your hobbies, a bit more things before talking about toys.
What's good?
So where are you from?
Well, I'm a very, I mean, the clue might be in the picture over my right hand shoulder here. So I'm a proud
Yes.
Welshman. So born and bred in Wales.
Ah, so you're Welsh guy.
Yes.
I didn't
So
know.
did you not?
No.
Obviously, we're a proud nation. So when you only got to what 3.5 million people in Wales, etc. But I've not lived in Wales now for a number of years. So went to university in Wales in Cardiff, and then moved out and have now lived sort of down in the southwest of England, probably for what 24 years now.
Okay, so let's talk about when you were in Wales, when you were a child. What kind of toys did you like playing in indoor and outdoor? Do you remember?
Well, John, it's a long time ago now, Jan, but so no, I think growing up, I was a very sporty, active child growing up. So I've got a love of sports. So being a Welshman again, rugby, football, played an awful lot of cricket and golf growing up, etc. So I was always out in the garden, etc., playing a lot of sport. But in terms of sort of the toys, it was. The usual sort of action figures that boys of my age always used to play with. So,
You
I
mean
think
action figures like Action Joe or things like that?
yeah, no, absolutely. So I think when I remember one of my first sort of toys was the Get Along Gang. I don't know if you remember the Get Along Gang with Montgomery Moose, and that was my sort of first sort of memories of getting into the sort of toys. Of course, back then we didn't have all the electronics, etc., that we have
No.
now and everything. So it was much more around sort of figures back in my day.
Okay. And so your hobbies were doing a lot of sports, and any sports in particular you like, you enjoy, you were doing competition or
Yeah, so I played an awful. I'd sort of win like most boys. It was sort of like at a winter sport and a summer sport. So played an awful lot of rugby and football growing up.
Mhm.
So probably more sort of football in my younger years, and then sort of a lot of rugby sort of in sort of later life and into university. But probably my greatest love was probably cricket. Again, a sport, doing like that. Predominantly, obviously, in the summer, but again, played it quite a little bit of indoors in the winter as well. So I'd say that's probably one of my sort of greatest loves. And again, early doors, probably played an awful lot of golf as well.
Mhm.
So of which I think golf tends to be sort of an ebb and a flow in many ways. Again, two long games, both golf and cricket, so difficult to try and keep both going at the same time. But
Mhm.
certainly now in later life, something that again, both sports I still play an awful lot of.
Okay. So when you were young, you were doing that, and then you went to study in Cardiff in university.
Yep.
What
So
kind of studies have you been doing?
So I did history at university. So covering yeah, a lot of different subjects to be fair. But again, sort of probably sort of like in terms of some of my core work is probably more around sort of the sort of 20th century type history. Looking at some of the World Wars, that side of things. So probably sort of more modern history. As I graduated from Cardiff University and then got into retail.
So you're studying history, you are in Cardiff, and so why do you leave and what do you do after your studies?
I think it was one of those things whereby coming from a family of lawyers, etc., I definitely didn't want to go into law. So that was one thing I was keen to avoid. And therefore history was a subject that I, enjoyed at school, studied at A level, etc. And I think it was sort of that sort of pathway into then further education, etc., and into the workplace. So I think at that stage it was more around picking a degree, something that would be of interest to me for 3 years, rather than particularly going down a different channel. And it was whilst at university actually that I managed to sort of get into retail. A
So
friend
where?
so a friend of ours at university, their parents worked as a distributor for a large French giftware company based in Paris, a company called Silea, Silea. And they used to do a lot of big trade fairs and things like that at the NEC. And again, we used to go along, etc., during university, and a few sort of bucks, etc., along the way. And that's why I sort of first got into sort of the working at retail. And I said they had, oh, I don't know, they must have had about maybe 600, 700 independent customers in the UK of varying sort of levels. And that's how I sort of first got interested in retail during my time at university.
Uh-huh. Okay. So and so where was that? In which part of England? In Southwest already?
Yeah, so they were no, they were based in the home counties there.
Uh-huh.
So around sort of in the Berkshire way. So I'd say it was a really interesting business for me, sort of knowing nothing about retail at that stage. Very much sort of get a very good grounding
Hmm.
to where I've got to today, I think. So really understood sort of the bread and butter of retail at independent level, meeting sort of independent shop owners, etc. And I think also during there, I also got visibility then in terms of some of the larger sort of department stores within the UK. Again, which then sort of brought interest. And then, so when I left university, I went to work for them. And again, looked after some of the sort of the larger department stores, people like sort of Beals and the Phoenix in the UK, those type of customers.
Hmm.
And again, sort of brought a lot more sort of interest, really, do you know what I mean, in retail and where I could develop probably a career.
Okay. So what do you do after?
So I just studied there. I did there for about sort of 2 to 3 years, and then I wanted to change. And then I joined a business that specialized more in the sort of DIY channel. And it was quite an interesting business because they were sourcing a lot of product design and sourcing a lot of product for the likes of B&Q, Homebase, etc. And I would probably spend a lot of my time, probably 6 months of the year out of the country, whether that be in China, Malaysia, Vietnam, etc., designing and sourcing products exclusively for mainly the DIY sheds. We did a bit for John Lewis as well on their sort of garden front, but that was mainly in garden product.
So you're already traveling abroad at this young age. You start to
Yeah,
travel.
so well, I was sort of in my mid sort of 24s, 25 yan, do you know what I
Mhm.
mean? Sort of again, do you know what I mean? Jumping around on aeroplanes, etc. Visiting, we used to visit probably sometimes, sort of 20 different factories on a sort of 4 week trip, etc. So I always said, to people, if you get the experience, particularly at a young age, to do that in the experience manufacturing and everything, it gives you a very good grounding then for sort of sales later on in life. So, that was an invaluable experience for sort of, for 3 years or so that I did that.
Okay.
And then, like most things, I wanted to sort of develop my career. I wanted to go down a little bit more of a branded route.
Hmm.
I think the opportunity with Plum came up at that stage.
Already. Okay.
Yeah, so it's sort of a national account controller role. And obviously outdoor play equipment, it appeal. I've always said within a sales role, the product it needs to appeal to you. I'm not somebody I don't think that could probably go and sell FMCG type product. It needs to be a sort of appeal to me. So certainly trampolines, wooden play center, sandpits, it was different.
So in
I got
which year are we, Phil, when you start in Plum?
say that again, sorry, Jan.
In which year are you arriving in Plum? Which
So
year?
So I joined in 2009. It was April 2009.
2009. Okay.
So I just remember it because obviously it was the year after sort of the financial crash there, sort of when
Yes.
Lehman
Yes.
Brothers went broke at the back in
Yeah.
2008. So yeah, so I've been what now, sort of coming into my sort of 17th year now at Plum.
Okay. So this is your first step in the toy business. It's 2009.
Correct.
And because you're an international guy, are you starting to travel a lot at 2009 or?
No, when I joined, it was predominantly we were predominantly still very much a UK business.
Okay. Okay.
So we just opened our Australian entity
Uh-huh.
when I joined, and very early on, within about sort of 6 months, we then opened our Hong Kong office. But that was still mainly more around sort of sourcing and that side of things to service our UK business, and then subsequently our Australian business. So we
Hmm.
weren't really, a fully fledged international business at that stage. It was very much two core markets. As I said, my priority at that stage was very much the larger customers within the UK that we had, and in those days, with people like obviously the Arguses, the Tesco's, the early learning centres, etc. So I probably had a remit, probably about sort of 12 to 15 customers at that stage with the UK business.
How do you do to sell outdoor toy products in UK when it's raining every day?
It's tough. Well, you'll know from your days at Bergian, do you know what I mean?
It was a joke.
Yeah. No, look, I think the good thing, do you know what I mean, about the outdoor toy business in some ways is regardless of weather conditions, market conditions, etc., people will, when the sun shines to a certain extent, will always want something for the garden to entertain the
Yeah.
children. I think, they're obviously in latter years, there is a tendency to try and get children off screens, etc., away from technology, and to get them outside and get them fit and healthy, etc. So outdoor in some ways has had that appeal. But yeah,
Hmm.
if it's a cold, wet winter, it certainly doesn't make the job, do you know what I mean, that much easier. But look, luckily as well, we've branched into different types of toys as well, both indoor and outdoor over the last, probably sort of 6, 7 years.
Hmm.
Um, and also through our international expansion, which I'm sure we'll come on to in a minute,
Yeah.
it's given us northern and southern hemispheres. So, the beauty of, say, let's take the US market is obviously some of the southern states are hot all year round. So the the beauty of the UK and European market, do you know what I mean, with some of our weather doesn't necessarily apply to other global markets.
Mhm. So when do you start to do a lot of international business and traveling?
Yeah, so probably we started our international side just after about sort of 2015. At that
Mhm.
stage, I was sales director for the UK.
Uh-huh.
And we'd grown our UK business quite substantially, but we really wanted to sort of pioneer our international expansion. We were developing all this fantastic product, some fantastic content for the brand, etc. Yet we were really sort of servicing two markets. So that's when I really moved across to the international side and sort of spearheaded the growth that we had there. Because that needed to be sort of really at a sort of a board level where we needed to have that sort of that real sort of vision really to grow that. As we
Mhm.
know, a lot of people have tried to grow their businesses internationally, etc. And it's tough. We've had a lot of learnings, along the way. But we've grown now. Plum is in what 92, 93 different international markets as of today.
Mm.
There's still more that we want to get into. But I think it's been a great journey for the brand, but still a lot more to do.
So where do you like to travel? Because you have been in a lot of countries for the last 10 years. You've been doing a lot of shows, international. Where do you like to travel yourself?
Well, given your global audience of Thai influence, I don't want to upset anybody here, Jan. Do you know what I mean? So a lot of people that I know, do you know what I mean? So a lot of our distributors might be upset. Um, I think, personally, do you know what I mean? Asia's always had, an appeal for me.
Huh?
One of my favorite places in the world, do you know what I mean, is probably Vietnam. Wonderful country, wonderful food, beautiful people. And I've, as I said, got some very, very fond memories there. Of course, France will always be up there, Jan, just because I'm talking
I
to
was
you.
missing this one.
So
Okay.
I should have, yeah, you're definitely, I should have said that first.
Why?
So,
Why France is your one of your favorite? Why?
well, why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't anybody want any French wine and champagne? So, yeah, I've had a number of trips down to Epinay, to enjoy champagne down there. So, but no,
Ah,
look, good wine, good food, etc. Normally good weather. It depends on the time of year, but yeah, no, I mean, look, I've thoroughly had some great memories and some great times all over the world. There's some places, the US, etc. Is so diverse, do you know what I mean, from north to south, east to west. So, fortunately, I've had some opportunities to through my job to travel to some wonderful places. I'm
mhm.
sure as Plum continues to grow that that there will be further opportunities again.
So what kind of toy shows do you like, or do you have favorite toy shows? Because you do a lot too.
Yeah, I think we haven't personally done it for a number of years, but Deauville was one of my favorites.
Mhm.
I think just the way that the French toy community comes together at that particular show is very unique to any particular toy market.
Mhm.
The same we used to do the pre-show at Charles de Gaulle Hotel at the Hilton there, for
Oh yeah,
instance.
before, yes, for the
Um,
permanent. Mhm.
yeah, again, and that was mainly down to the timing for us as an outdoor toy business. That was very good in terms of selections for the following season. So whereas Deauville for the following year is just slightly little bit late for us.
Mhm.
Um, but again, there's so many different. I think there's the ones you take personal enjoyment from, and there's obviously the ones that you get the most amount of benefit for, of course. The olden days of Hong Kong, when you'd have appointments from 8 o'clock in the morning through to 8, 9 o'clock at night, and that would continue obviously for about sort of 10, 11 days. You
Mm.
get your buzz out of those type of shows, and there's so much that comes out of it. Obviously, that's not the same now, unfortunately, in Hong Kong, and we'll see whether LA potentially does take, do you know what I mean, that and
Do
grow.
you go to LA?
We did LA in September with our international partner Flybar for the
Oh yes,
US. Yeah.
I
Uh,
buy. So what
so
do you think about this show? You've been the last 2 years or?
yeah, I think as a international show,
Mhm.
I think it will continue to grow. Obviously, a lot of our distribution partners will visit.
Mhm.
For us, we'll only do probably the September, probably being the bigger period there. Obviously, having Flybar based in the US over in New Jersey, there's no need to really have a permanent presence there on the West Coast, but. I think it will grow as an international show. I think there's a
Mhm.
number of challenges to it. Certainly from our perspective, and I know there's been obviously a lot of discussion around, primarily on LinkedIn around what does the future look like in terms of LA. very much as a non-US based vendor. Obviously, we want to be meeting with some of the largest US players that they have in the market there. And I think probably that was the one, not necessarily criticism, but observation that came out of last September was, there wasn't all the Walmarts, the Targets, etc., visiting during that particular time. And I think
Mhm.
that challenge for probably the US Toy Association as to how to appeal to those retailers at the same time. It's for them to visit because again, it was a very long period, 3 weeks, which I know a lot of people, I personally did 10 days, but I know a lot of people are there for 3 weeks and
Yes, that's long.
um, the calendar is already busy enough.
Mm.
So I think that element, needs to be looked at, and I think for this September, it seems to be again that they've made some of the changes, but it still seems to be how do we get those key US retailers to visit at the same time, which I don't know is ever going to be possible.
Okay. So now we are in end of April 2025. We are talking about the tariff, with all the problems in US. For you, for the Plum company, is the US market is important for you? Do you have any problem with that or?
Yes. Yeah, look, obviously the US is a really important market for us. And obviously the tariffs is like for a lot of toy companies is a major problem at the moment. And unfortunately, I mean, it's very difficult to go about it in a business-like way to deal with this issue. Normally, doing there are a plan B or C. Unfortunately, sort of, it appears at the moment that the wait and see approach, do you know what I mean, is what a lot of US vendors, etc., and global suppliers are taking, which in business we don't really like that type of approach. So I think, again, like most businesses, we are predominantly manufacturing, in China. Yes, we have the ability to move some production to other regions of the world. But again, obviously, man, having worked in outdoor toys like yourself, that's not a quick and easy way to do that. Also, with some of the customers that we do supply in the US, the processes that you have to go through outside of a country like China, they're not set up really as much as they might be, within it. It's all very efficient, etc. Within the Chinese market. So yeah, it's a challenging period, no doubt. Luckily for us, we're not in a position like some companies whereby we might have stock now currently sat in a bonded warehouse somewhere
Yeah.
or tooling ready, waiting to sign off, etc. Obviously, a lot of our stock had already sailed prior to the start of the SS26, sorry, SS25 season. So, but yeah, it's a challenging situation, and one that we're still sort of trying to, and an evolving situation when we're trying to get our heads around how we actually deal with this.
Okay. What will be your next show and your next traveling show?
So probably next will be September LA.
So no
So
more this toy because this toy is cancelled. You've heard about this new show in Praga or it's not on, no? I'm not sure.
I've heard little bits about it at the
I'm
moment,
not sure
but
about that.
yeah, no, it won't be there at that time.
Okay.
So I think obviously, look, this toy again was a show that we did, exhibit at for a number of years.
Yeah.
But obviously, as the attendance got less, and again, people prioritize things like LA over those shows. Unfortunately, obviously. It just wasn't viable anymore. But it does go back to the usual discussion that, appears on LinkedIn now and again. How many shows do we do as a global toy business? Personally, as a growing, evolving business like Plum, the more content that we can have, obviously, directly with our customers, the better. But what you don't really want is an episode, say, like in January, whereby we used to have Hong Kong, London, Nuremberg, and you might see the same faces, at all three shows.
Yeah.
Lovely to see them, can I just say? But it's you do get to a stage whereby, well, is there anything, left to discuss?
Yeah, yes, I totally understand that. Okay, very good. So what will you do for Easter?
Well, I mean, having just come back from a holiday this week. Do you know what I mean? There will be an element of catching up certainly on some of the work side, but no, I'll be looking forward to spending some time with the children. I have two girls, aged 11 and 13, so I enjoy some time with them. Dare I say, do you know what I mean, there will be an element of sport, Jan. So
Yeah.
a couple of rounds of golf are already in the diary, but also again with the cricket season fast approaching and some fine weather again, probably be doing a bit of practicing ready for the start of the season there at the same time. So
Mm.
whilst maybe enjoying a few Easter eggs along the way as well.
Very good, Philippe. Thanks a lot for the conversation. Enjoy your Easter time with your family, and we keep in touch and see you soon in the next show.
Will do. I will do. Look forward to catching up again, Jan.
Okay. Thank you for joining.
Pleasure. All the
Ciao,
best.
Phil. Ciao.
Bye bye.
Ciao.